3.2 billion naira fraud. EFCC declares Yaya Bello wanted as immigration. DSS places him on watch list. Don't stop EFCC from performing its duties, says the AGF, warning politicians. Court stops enforcement of Ganduje's suspension from APC. Damagum to remain as acting chairman of PDP, says NEC. CBN not defending Naira with foreign reserve withdrawal, says Cardoso. FG denies reinstating fuel subsidy, asks claimants to provide proof. JAMB to arrest parents found at CBT centers during the UTME. Those who threaten Nigeria's sovereignty will pay the price, President Tinubu warned separatists during parley with Afenifere leaders. Oyo government demolishes Yoruba Nation agitators building, arraigned suspects. 10 years after, 91 girls remain unaccounted for as parents demand their rescue. Kaduna Assembly sets up committee to probe El Rufai administration, calls out Bello El Rufai for allegedly threatening speaker. Nigerian army neutralizes 3 bandits in Benue, confirms rescue of pregnant Chibok girl with her 3 children from terrorist captivity. Okwama residents file a 200 billion naira lawsuit against the Nigerian army. Army releases monarch declared wanted for Okwama killings. Naira abuse. Court grants Cubana chief priest 10 million naira bail after arraignment by EFCC. Peter Obi canvasses for shift from presidential to parliamentary system of government in Nigeria. Hatred for Nigerian police is affecting security, Police Community Relations Committee. Interior Minister tests runs e-gates at Abuja Airport, other international airports to follow. NLC TUC demands 615,000 naira as minimum wage in new proposal. Asks federal government to unveil new wage May 1st. Humanitarian Ministry probe. EFCC recovers 32.7 billion naira, $445,000 embezzled COVID-19 World Bank loan Abacha loot funds. National grid collapses again, 6th time in 2024, as consumers groan over darkness hit despite high costs. Lagos government arrests 25 suspected miscreants, including Lebanese squatting under bridges. Your exams conducted during Eid al-Fitr holiday are illegal, Islamic group tells Enugu University. Serious escalation. World reacts to Iran's drone missile raids on Israel. Israel retaliates. US stops UN from recognizing Palestinian states through membership. Kenyan defense chief, 9 other senior officers die in helicopter crash. Today is 20th of April 2024, coinciding with the 11th day of Shawwal, 1445 AH. It's a beautiful afternoon from us here. We apologize for coming on a bit late. It was due to technical glitches completely beyond our control. Good afternoon, Dr. OLUBUNMI.
Good afternoon, AMINAT. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Ramadan in arrears, right? Ramadan Kareem in arrears. Eid Mubarak in arrears. It's been a long time, but alhamdulillah, it's good to be back. I'll just go straight to the news that's a bit unsettling for me, and that's because I'm hoping that there'll be some fairness. It's the case of Obi Kubana's Kubana chief priest, being granted a 10 million naira bill after arraignment by EFCC for devaluing what's the word now, for abuse of the naira. So how did he get a bill and his counterpart didn't get a bill? That one got locked up 6 months.
Well, the truth of the matter is that I don't think that's the end of the case.
Okay.
So it's actually that of a bill pending when because he pleaded not guilty.
Okay.
In the case of Idris Okuneye, he pleaded guilty. So for pleading guilty, that's more like you have admitted guilt. So to shorten the case and more like just like a warning ordinarily. For some people, they felt that instead of the 6 months, custodial sentence, probably could have been 6 months of community service or some other things like that, or even option of fine. But one thing I think that particular journal was meant to do was to actually send a strong message to those who think that they can abuse it and go away with it.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people too, that has been knocked on the government that it's actually more like cherry picking and more like it's a case of witch hunt against so some people that ordinarily it would have been a case of it's either you're treating everybody equally, politicians, celebrities, or whosoever that abuses the naira. It should not be a case of selective justice. But in the case of Cubana chief priest Pascal Ikechukwu, is the original name. The idea is for pending when the case, it's for the EFCC to prove its case before the court. That's just the first arraignment, and the charges will be read to him, and he pleaded not guilty. So it's for his lawyers to actually prove his innocence, or for the EFCC to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt as a prosecution, so that at the end of the day, the judge will now take a decision. In the case of Idris Okuneye, because he pleaded guilty, so there was no point taking half long matter. So
I'm glad you're able to clarify.
So in this case of Cubana chief priest, just a bill. So his case would continue.
Still,
yes, and so until the case is exhausted.
Thanks for the clarity, because we needed to do that, because a lot of people then jump on it and there's
they say,
social media is
he's
just
a bigger fry and say fish to fry or something.
Right. I'm interested in Yaya Bello's case, and that's because so he's been arraigned for an 80.2 billion naira fraud. One human being.
Well, for me, I think there's still a cloud of there is still this kind of cloud of ambiguity over that particular case, because that matter of 80.2 billion naira, according to Ayabelu's people, and even from the EFCC, that the offense stemmed from February 2016, and that was prior to the swearing in of Ayabelu as the governor of Kogi State.
Okay.
So it's a case of, did he start stealing the money before he became governor?
Okay.
So that's one case. So it's for the EFCC to prove its case. Right. Then the second thing is the fact that whether he's innocent or guilty, I think that for the fact that the EFCC wants to arraign him, and this has been coming even before he handed over to the new governor, Usman Ododo. Now, it's a case of EFCC is after him, and it's not only Ayabelu that is on trial. In fact, even Bello's younger brother, one Ali Bello, is also on trial with some other people.
Oh, sorry to cut in. Just before we came into the studio, I did see a video circulating about his wife handing out 1 million naira cash to staff of the office before they left the office, and the video is online right now. So,
that the wife handed that to some of those domestic staff. Doesn't prove anything as far as I'm concerned. Actually, it's for us to actually come up with proofs that that money was actually that of Kogi State that she's just using. That's number one. Then number two is the fact that as far as this is concerned, it's the governor that we have a case, because it's the governor that was elected by the people. It's the governor that is accountable to the people like that. So in the case of not the wife was not really
so she could
elected.
Have been given a gift and she spent it the way
it could have. It could be so unless we have facts to prove that. But in the case of Yaya Bello and this now. He was declared, before he was actually declared wanted. So the FCC wanted to actually, get to him because he did not honor the invitation. So they decided that, okay, we'll come to arrest you. Come to our office. You have some statements to make. Then the following day, you actually be arraigned in court. But then, there was a seed laid on his house because he would not come out. And all attempts to probably talk to him, fell on deaf ears. Particularly because he actually absconded from Kogi State, ran to Abuja. And they had to trace him. In fact, based on the pieces of information that we're able to gather, he actually left his personal phone in Kogi State, such that if it was tracked, you'll be tracking it to Kogi State, whereas he's actually in Abuja. So it was probably the phone of an aide of his that was eventually used to actually track him down. So he was tracked to that particular house. That's his own personal residence. And upon laying seed that they were about to go in, he did not come out, and we're almost having a repeat of what happened to the case of Rocha Sokorocha, that the door of the house was actually broken and they had to break it down to gain entrance into his house. You remember the video that Okocha did that, I'm under attack, this and that. So that was almost happening. Then before we knew it, the governor of Kogi State came in. He has immunity as the governor. Ayabelu doesn't have any immunity anymore. So it's for you to actually, ordinarily, there are so many people that have actually been declared wanted. You go, you address your case. If you have any defense, it's for you to actually come up with your lawyers, let them prove that your innocence, or for the EFCs to actually prove you guilty. But then, instead of honoring the invitation, he decided to stay there. And the governor came in because he has immunity. He also has his own security details with him, and that was how he prevented the governor prevented EFCC officials from actually arresting former Governor Yahya Bello. And upon that, now the EFCC actually declared him wanted. The Nigerian police had actually withdrawn the police details to the former governor. Now, the Nigerian Immigration Service has actually also put him on a watch list so that he will not escape. The DSS has also placed him on a watch list. So I think that if former Governor Yahya Bello, the lion of Kogi, as he probably chooses to be called, if truly he's a lion, I don't think a lion will run away from these are minions, ordinarily EFCC minions. So why should a lion be running away from these minions? So I expect that he should honor the invitation, go, appear in court. It was because he actually did not appear in court as of the following day when he was supposed to actually honor the EFCC invitation. Because he did not appear in court, now the court has adjourned the case till next week. So for him to come, or for the EFCC to produce him, I think that the governor of Kogi State has also abused the power of immunity by actually shielding, aiding, and abetting a suspect, right, from facing, justice. So I think that does not, bode well for our democracy. And I think the president too should probably call the governor to order and tell the governor to advise his predecessor to actually honor, to surrender himself, to lawful authority and prove his case, prove his innocence in court. That you are summoned by EFCC, that you appear in court is not a guilty verdict.
I agree with you. So, I'm interested in the Yoruba Nation agitators. As a matter of fact, in the course of the week, I saw a video of a woman declaring sovereignty of that nation
Mrs.
and what have you. Yes. And so it's interesting that the Oyo State government have demolished their building where they, host their activities and arraign suspects.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that also President Tinubu has given stern warning about this, in his discussions with the Fenifere leaders.
Actually, so the idea is those guys actually stormed Oyo State. I remember, if you probably recollect, that Oyo State, Ibadan to be precise, actually happened to be, the seat of the Western region in those days. So, as far as that is concerned, so administratively, that's the administrative capital of, the Western region, the Yoruba. The Yoruba region. That would put it
so just southwest.
Because it's not
southwest.
Well, if you say southwest, yes, because that was the seat of the Western region then, and we have the premier seated there. We have the Western Assembly and every other thing, the paraphernalia of what we used to be the Western Regional Government. Now, so they went there, and they went to the Oyo State Government House and erected the flag of the Yoruba nation. And at the end of the day, claiming that one United Nations somewhere has recognized, Yoruba nation and things like that. And someone remarked that, how do you throw stones at a plane when your son is the pilot? So what exactly would these agitators of Yoruba nation say they want when their son is actually the commander-in-chief? Is the president of the country?
Just out of curiosity, where is Brother Sunday?
Brother Sunday is probably somewhere too in Oyo State, I expect. And because ordinarily, now his group has come out to denounce this woman's group, claiming that she's trying to appropriate the struggle of the legitimate cause of the Yoruba nation that he and Professor what's his name again? This professor that's actually the leader of the Lano Odua, the Yoruba nation, as more popularly called, that this one is just trying to usurp, their authority and claiming, that this is that Yoruba nation group that he belongs to, and that professor, I've forgotten his name. Now that professor of his, because he's a professor of history, that group, they are against, the methods adopted by this woman. You can now imagine someone like reform the Udra nation, or what do we call that? Now, so they have said that they have nothing to do with that group, and they have nothing to do with the so-called hijack of, the Oyo State, Secretariat, or the State House of Assembly, or whatsoever. So that they have denounced that group, and that it's actually a criminal group, and the government should actually take action, against them.
Okay, let's look at this probe of the humanitarian ministry. The amount recovered so far, recovered to be restolen in my head. That's when I see this money, this has been recovered, that has been recovered. I just feel that they just recovered it to be restolen by the current group of people. I pray not, though. However, what do you make of it?
Well, a lot of people actually have been saying that Beta Edo has been suspended since early this year, January this year, and till now, there has been no closure to the investigation. We actually don't know if at all she would eventually face criminal prosecution, or if at all she has actually been found guilty, or no, even not being found guilty. If truly some monies are actually been traced to her, or if she had actually embezzled and mismanaged funds allocated to that ministry, if she had corruptly enriched herself by virtue of being a minister in that particular ministry, it remains to be seen. What has happened to Halima Shehu, the coordinator of the social intervention program, social NSIPA, social intervention program agency, that the coordinator of that office, Beta Edu, and the former minister Sadia Umar Farouk. These are the three people, the three women actually.
They have a mentor in Desani. Do you blame them?
Well, sorry. Well, that's not coming from me. I didn't say that.
Well,
but then, the truth of the matter is just that
if she goes scot-free, she went scot-free. So why?
No, she didn't go. She didn't go scot-free. She actually absconded. No, she ran away from this country, and the United Kingdom has not honored the extradition request by Nigeria. So what do? We cannot just go there Gestapo style and just bring. This is not a military government. It was Buhari that tried something like that. So we cannot abduct Desani from there. But the reality is just that there needs to be clarity and necessary information concerning that case. And because right now that ministry is probably in comatose. There is no substantive minister. Clearly. Again, is the fact that the social intervention program has actually been suspended. Now it is being overseen by the finance ministry. And are you sure, like you asked, some other underhand dealings will not be going on?
We just see these announcements. We honestly don't see the
impact. Because a lot of people, and unfortunately too, because Beta Edu, some of his aides were coming out to say, now that you have said this and that Beta Edu has not been indicted. So probably she's as clean as also. And EFCC is coming out to say, no. We have not said anyone is free. We have not said anyone is, not indicted. That's why the fact that we have not indicted anyone. But at the same time, we are only saying investigations are ongoing, and these are the recoveries that have been made. So nobody has been left off the hook. So anybody trying to present something to the contrary is only probably doing that at his own.
Before we run off, I want us to touch on this, and that's also it's your area, and that's to do with Enugu University conducting examinations during the Eid al-Fitr holiday. What was that about?
Well, unfortunately, I would say the media has not provided, has not done justice to that particular claim, because it was Murik, Muslim Rights Concern, that came out with that report that exams were conducted in two public universities. One was an examination, one was a test. Now, and these two institutions are actually owned by the government. Now, and on these days, we had a national public holiday declared by the federal government that covers the whole federation. So who then is that lecturer? Which institution would approve that students should write tests or exams on a national public holiday? See, whether or not they are Muslim students is not the case here. It's a case of the fact that government has declared holiday, and flouting that is tantamount to flouting the order of the federal government. And that in itself is reprehensible. So for that reason, for it to not even now happen on a day probably Muslims are celebrating, it's more like trying to discountenance, that particular religious group and that particular celebration, even if it is honored and recognized by the federal government. That's one. Then number two is also the fact that apart from that, you are flouting that, you're also probably trying to prove to such people that these things don't matter. So what kind of students are we training that would be insensitive to the needs and probably the concerns and the plight of people that don't share the same faith with us. Then again, come to think of it, it will now become more criminal if you are to now have Muslim students in that particular schools who ordinarily, probably out of fear now, will be prevented from actually celebrating their own, festival, despite the fact that there is an approval of such by the federal government, or that you even have a situation where some of them would probably have gone for their celebration and at the end of the day probably would have missed a test or an examination. That is unforgivable.
Right.
So and I think for that reason, NUC needs to step in to really verify if that truly happened.
Right.
Then appropriate disciplinary measures should be taken against all those who are found culpable as far as that matter is concerned. Because I think that there needs to be an investigation of that matter, and there needs to be more like a kind of query issued to probably the school to find out if first is investigation if at all that truly happened. If it happened, then some people need to call to questioning the lecturers concerned in the two schools, the HODs of the departments that fix such examinations or tests, and the deans of the faculties that are also involved. So by then, probably these people are called to question, and even the heads of the institution, because the vice chancellor, all those other ones are subordinate, and it shows whether or not such a vice chancellor is in charge of activities within that institution or not. So if you have such an activity taking place in such an institution, and the vice chancellor claims or feigns ignorance of such, automatically you're saying that vice chancellor does not have the capacity to truly manage. Because if it's something that will go out of proportion now and probably will cause chaos or whatsoever crisis, is this how we'll probably also be saying whether it is true or not? Or I expect the institution to have come out to say that such a thing probably never did happen.
Right.
And if it did, to say, well, we are investigating, and at the end of the day, we'll come up with the truth.
So I'll just say we keep tabs on this and give you updates in a later. As the case unfolds, inshallah. This is how far we can go on the show today. Why not join us same time next week for another bumper package of news review. Until then, stay blessed. Dr. OLUBUNMI, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.